Some TV shows get huge acclaim, others get none. Some TV shows also get huge audiences, others get none. The lucky ones manage to get both somehow. So today I'm going to talk about the TV shows that either didn't get the huge acclaim or didn't get the huge audiences. The most underrated TV shows that were overlooked either in terms of awards or in terms of viewers. And TV shows that you should probably check out if you haven't already. Note however that I'm not talking about TV shows that necessarily got cancelled or ended early. I'm talking about TV shows that had a run, did what they did from beginning to end, but just for whatever reason were overlooked a little bit.
Right into this world, all alone. God takes your soul, you're on your own. The crow flies straight, a perfect line, on the devil's bed until you die. Gotta look this life in the eye.
Sons of Anarchy. So Sons of Anarchy, a huge success, especially in terms of viewers. It was, at the time of its release, Fox's most successful dramatic TV show ever, I think. It's a certain point, I think it had to build its way up to that. But Sons of Anarchy, 7 seasons, serialized storytelling about a biker gang. It's very adult, very serious stuff in there. Lots of Shakespearean similarities because it was essentially based on Hamlet. Not a lot of people know that, but it is. It's based on Hamlet, just with biker gangs, you know, because you gotta make Shakespeare more accessible. But anyway, Sons of Anarchy, 7 seasons, really successful in terms of audiences, but critically it actually got pretty good reviews throughout its run. The first season a little mixed. But in terms of awards, not a lot. In fact, barely any at all. The only real major award that it ever not only won, but got nominated for was the Golden Globe for Best Supporting Actress, which was given to Katie Sagal. Rightfully so, she was great in the show. But it never got any Emmy nominations, none of the mainstream Emmy nominations like Best Series or Best Actor and Actress and all that stuff. It was overlooked. And I think there are numerous reasons for this. One, it was on Fox in the US. Fox in the US has a mixed reception among certain audiences in that it's often leaning towards more right-wing sort of views, politically speaking. So a lot of people don't tune into that channel because of that. And then of course it's the way in which it deals with adult themes and content, in that it's often trying to do some of that stuff, but again, it's a network, it's not a cable provider like HBO, so it does have limitations. It couldn't, at the time of release, drop F-bombs or have like lots of sex and nudity and stuff like that. So it felt like it was trying to push it, but it just couldn't. And I think a lot of that stuff really did limit it down. But either way, Sons of Anarchy, from beginning to end, a good show. Yeah, it's got its highs and lows. The first season, a little mixed. Second season, great. From that point onwards, I would say it was consistently good. Yeah, season 6, one of the best, I would say. Not many TV shows have like a 7-season run where the later seasons are as good as the earlier ones. Sons of Anarchy, arguably the opposite. Sneaky Pete. So Amazon Prime, when that first launched, they had a bunch of TV shows on it, and it had like this pilot program. One of them was Sneaky Pete. Sneaky Pete, produced by Bryan Cranston, although he was only in the first season, is a much more comedic, dramatic take on con artistry. So the main character, Sneaky Pete, leaves prison takes up the identity of his cellmate, gets in with his family, and basically starts to con his way into a new life. And there's a lot of twists and turns, there's a lot of surprises. This is a really interesting show. It had 3 seasons, each one building up from the last. Eventually though, it started to get really convoluted, and in a good way, because there was so much going on, so many characters. Certain characters knew one thing, certain characters knew a different thing. Eventually it got to the point where you just completely lost track of who knows what, who knew who, what's going on, and all that stuff. But it was really fun, really entertaining at the same time, with a brilliant cast headed up by Giovanni Ribisi and Margot Martindale and a bunch of other names and faces who you'll probably recognize. This was a really underrated show. Didn't get much in the way of awards attention, and also didn't get much in the way of audience attention either, because it was on Prime Video. I feel like this is one of them Prime Video, Amazon Prime Video TV shows that was kind of put on the service but kind of got lost in the crowd a bit. And it was there, but it wasn't like standing out. It wasn't something they were huge in promoting. And I think that was the real deterrent for it. So after 3 seasons, the show did get cancelled. Arguably, the season 3 finale does wrap up the storyline in a certain way, but it's a little disappointing and a little unsatisfactory, because clearly there was meant to be more, but the storyline does come to an end in a way. And it's just like, oh, that's it, it's over. It's not like a huge big deal that they make at the season 3 finale. And it's really disappointing because there was still huge potential for more to come. Heading from season 2 to 3, I think it was, they did change the location. They went from New York to Los Angeles. And season 3 had to deal with that, in that they had to move the characters from one side of the country to the other. And that was a cost reduction method. So I feel like that was one of the reasons why it got cancelled as well, is that realistically they couldn't actually continue to do that in season 4. It wouldn't make sense to keep taking the family from their home in New York to Los Angeles every season. And of course it means they have to actually move the whole crew and cast and everything as well. So Sneaky Pete, really underrated, really fun, really entertaining. Give it a go. Yeah, disappointing ending, not a bad ending, but it's just not the way it was meant to end. Brooklyn Nine-Nine. So Brooklyn Nine-Nine, undoubtedly one of the best comedies on TV right now. This year, as of recording in 2021, it's gotten a bit of delay because of the police riots and events of 2020. They had to reconfigure what they were going to do for this season. So the next season is going to be the final season. Brooklyn Nine-Nine, in terms of awards, it actually did get a couple of awards, mainly for Andre Braugher in the supporting role of Captain Holt. Brilliant performance from him. He pretty much gets an Emmy nomination every season. A couple of exceptions. Andy Samberg got nominated for Golden Globe early on in the season's run, but other than that, awards-wise, it hasn't really picked up much. And audience-wise, the audience has continued to grow throughout its run. It did move from Fox to NBC, where it's much more at home now. The show's very well made. It feels like a classic sitcom, but filmed in a much more modern style. So that's cool. If you just want a classic sitcom where you can put on any episode you want, just sit down, watch it, you'll have a laugh. It's one of those laugh-a-minute type of TV shows. There are some serious themes and messages in there as well. It deals with a lot of stuff involving like the police and the LGBTQ plus community. A lot of the comedy is very quick, very witty, very smart, I would say, but it also feels like it's a lot of improv in there. I don't know how much of it is actually improv, but it really blends all that well together to make a cohesive, constantly funny TV show. I don't think there's ever been a bad episode of it. Ultimately, it's a feel-good TV show, and the show did get cancelled once already, but because of its cancellation, the fans were furious on Twitter, and within, I think, like 2 days, the show was brought back to life on NBC. So the fan support was there, and the fan support grew and became much more vocal when they realised their favourite show might not continue. The Good Fight. So The Good Fight is hands down one of the best TV shows on right now. The problem is that The Good Fight is, well, there's a couple of problems. The first one is that it's a spin-off slash sequel to The Good Wife. You do not have to have seen The Good Wife to watch The Good Fight. However, The Good Wife's brilliant, and if you have seen The Good Wife, you will really appreciate what The Good Fight does as a continuation, as a spin-off of that TV show. So watch both of them. Watch The Good Wife as well. That's somewhat underrated. So that's one problem, in that some people might not want to watch The Good Fight thinking they have to watch The Good Wife first, and there's a lot of episodes of The Good Wife. But hey, watch it anyway, it's great. The other problem is that it's on CBS All Access in America, now called Paramount Plus. If you didn't know, CBS All Access and Paramount Plus kind of now becoming the home of Star Trek. The big shows that CBS All Access, so Paramount Plus, is promoting is Star Trek. So The Good Fight kind of gets lost in the crowd. It's not the easiest thing to promote. I think it's kind of just there. Clearly it's still successful because it's continuing on. People are watching it, obviously. It's also very big budget, very well made, brilliant acting across the board, some heavy themes and topics. The Good Fight is much more political than its predecessor, The Good Wife. So much so that at times the show kind of gets distracted and confused as to what it wants to be. At one point it wants to be a legal drama, at another point it wants to be a political drama, and sometimes it mixes in comedy in there as well. The problem is that if you are a right-wing, politically leaning person, you're going to hate The Good Fight. This show has dedicated the past 3 years of its existence to bashing Donald Trump and everything he stands for, everything he says, and everything he does. And that's going to rub people the wrong way. Certain people. Personally, I'm all for it, although it does become a bit annoying when every other episode is, oh, he has another way we're just going to attack Donald Trump. It's like, right, do something original. Awards-wise, it hasn't gotten much of anything. And I do think it's because not many people are watching it, because it is stuck on this streaming service, and I also think it's because Star Trek is the big thing that draws you to that service, so you might not always realize or remember that The Good Fight's there as well. Battlestar Galactica. Now, I'm not talking about the original 70s Battlestar Galactica, the rip-off of Star Wars. I'm talking about the Ronald D. Moore 2003-2004, I believe it was, reboot of Battlestar Galactica. The reimagining is probably a more accurate term for it. So it ran for, 4 seasons? Had a movie as well, 2 movies, one was a TV movie. And it's brilliant from beginning to end. Some of the seasons are better than others. It's very serious, very adult, very mature science fiction. It was, if this was a show that came out now, it would be getting much more acclaim and attention than it did back then, because it was on the Sci-Fi Channel, or the Sci-Fi Network in America. A channel that's sometimes almost looked down upon. It kind of gets lost in the crowd. Some people forget that it's there, some people forget that it's a thing. And it's got a very niche audience. After Battlestar Galactica, the channel even rebranded itself, changed the spelling of sci-fi, and became much more open about the type of shows that it would accept. It's kind of gone back to being much more traditional sci-fi, but anyway, that's a different discussion for a different time. Battlestar Galactica, really, really well made. It showed that science fiction didn't have to be this corny, cheesy, low-budget thing. It could be this highbrow, serious, dark TV show where it's dealing with big themes, big messages, and huge overarching storylines. For a network TV show at the time, it was doing serialized storytelling, which was very rare. That was something that was usually preserved for the cable providers like HBO, Showtime. So the fact that this show did have overarching storylines more than it had procedural elements was something of note. But the cast was absolutely amazing. They deserved a lot more attention than it got. A lot of the cast members in the show should have got huge award attention. The show itself should have got award attention. The writer, Ronald D. Moore, should have got award attention. The special effects definitely needed more. But this kind of just came and went. And it wasn't until after the show finished that a lot of people tuned in and watched it. Now, the show's kind of available everywhere. I think there are even places where you can watch it absolutely for free. Just make sure you watch the mini-series first. did watch it, the audience did like it. It continued for 4 seasons, like I said. It got spin-off movies, they even got a spin-off TV show, which didn't last all that long, it lasted 1 season. And there have been constant attempts to reboot it and bring it back in form of film or TV and so on and so forth, and they've all kind of fallen flat because, well, none of them can actually live up to the original version. But the bottom line is Battlestar Galactica, all about the human race whose planet, Caprica, and its neighbouring planets were all destroyed by the Cylon invasion, now has to survive in space to find a new Earth. It's something we can all relate to. Not really, but you know what I mean. And this is undoubtedly one of the best science fiction shows ever made. A lot of people, myself included, might even say that it's the best science fiction show ever made. And a lot of science fiction shows that are coming out now are, without a doubt, inspired by this to some degree.
You are being watched. The government has a secret system, a machine that spies on you every hour of every day. I designed the machine to detect acts of terror, but it sees everything. Violent crimes involving ordinary people. The government considers these people irrelevant. We don't. Hunted by the authorities. We work in secret. You'll never find us. But victim or perpetrator, if your number's up, we'll find you.
Final show I want to talk about today is Person of Interest. So Person of Interest, from the makers of Westworld. That got you in? Has that hooked your attention? It should have, because if you like Westworld, you'll love Person of Interest. It's not like Westworld though, I should point that out. At least not the first 2 seasons of Westworld. Person of Interest, all about this scientist who creates a artificial intelligence computer called the Machine, who can, or which can, predict when crimes are going to happen. So, this scientist and this ex-military man team up to stop these crimes from happening, to figure out, right, what's the crime, who's the perpetrator, who's the victim. All they get though each and every time is a name, or more specifically a social security number. They don't know if that social security number is the victim of the crime or the perpetrator of the crime. So that's up to them to find out. It's a bit like a police procedural, except that it's less about solving the crime and figuring out who did it, and more about preventing the crime and figuring out who's responsible. It really does a good twist on that, and it mixes in science fiction elements. The first couple of seasons are very procedural in that each episode is like, right, what's the crime this week? What's the incident this week? But it does mix it up. Sometimes it is the victim that they're tailing, sometimes it's the perpetrator. Sometimes it's a little bit different entirely in that it might not be either of them. But as the series progresses, there is a much stronger serialized element to it. The later seasons have a much more ongoing storyline to it. Lots of twists and turns, lots of big dramatic moments, really cool action scenes, really well shot in that a lot of the show is filmed in like security camera, found footage stylings, good acting from Michael Emerson and even Jim Caviezel. One of the things this show really did really well is that it made some of the female characters who are often in these type of shows like side supporting characters and love interests, it made the female characters in this show just badasses. It made them really super cool and interesting, more so than even the male characters in the show, and I really have to give it a thumbs up for that, because for this type of show to do that at this time period was a little unusual. But also the themes about government control and surveillance and technology and all of that stuff was very relevant for the time period itself. You could argue that it was ahead of its time period because Westworld, like I said, from the makers of this, Season 3 actually takes storylines and plot elements and ideas from Person of Interest. If you like the 3rd season of Westworld, the ideas surrounding that season particularly, you are going to love Person of Interest because it's essentially the same story. But ultimately, Person of Interest didn't get any sort of award attention, so it is an action procedural TV show, that's probably why. But it also didn't get huge audience viewership. The audience that watched it were die-hard audience members. They loved this show, I loved this show. It was always on the risk of being cancelled throughout its run. It did eventually get a final season of 13 episodes, shorter than the previous seasons, which all had 22 episodes. So the show did wrap up well. It wrapped up the storylines and the character arcs really, really well. And I think a little like some of the previous shows I mentioned, this was constantly good. I don't think there was a single bad episode. Some seasons were better than others, and there's a lot of action in there, a lot of drama in there, a lot of emotion in there. It worked really well, and this, of all the shows I've talked about today, this is the one that I really want to hammer home on. This is one you should watch. Person of Interest, 5 seasons, brilliant. And those are the most underrated TV shows that I want to talk about today. There are others out there, of course, some I'm aware of that I haven't even talked about, some that I would like to have talked about, but these are the ones I really just wanted to get out there right now. If you've liked this show, why not subscribe to my channel to get more content like this? And follow me on Twitter and Instagram at @the_GrantBurton. Also, go on to twitch.tv/the_GrantBurton to watch me as I stream video games whenever I want to stream video games. Let me know in the comments and feedback down below what your most underrated TV shows are, what TV shows you think other people should be checking out. Until next time though, thanks for watching.